In a changing world, clean air and clean water are essential to human health, sustainability, and innovation. The World Filtration Institute is dedicated to this vital mission, connecting science, technology, and solutions. We proudly welcome you to the WFI 2025 Annual Virtual Conference.
Hello, my name is Tyler Smith, and I'm VP of Global Lifecycle Solutions at Johnson Controls. On behalf of the WFI 2025 Organizing Committee and all of our distinguished speakers, we invite you to join us at the World Filtration Institute's 2025 Annual Conference on December 2nd and 3rd, 2025, from 8 a.m. to noon Eastern each day. The theme of this year's conference is Filtration for a Healthy, Resilient, and Sustainable World.
I'm Greg Holverson.
My name is Dr. Thomas Caesar.
My name is Dr. Iyad Al-Attar.
My name is Mark Schmidt.
My name is Tobias Zimmer.
My name is Martin Klein.
My name is Dr. Jatin Kanpara.
My name is Ashley Jameson.
My name is Andreas Wiegmann.
My name is Jim Answer.
I'm Wes Fisher.
I'm Dr. Thomas Piet.
My name is Dr. John Ryan.
I'm Bruce Larange.
My name is Cedric Vallée.
I'm Paul Gagliardo.
My name is Tony Abad.
I'm Junko.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Agopian. I'm the president of Revive Air, and it is truly an honor to let you know that I'll be hosting a session at the 2025 WFI Annual Conference.
I'm Mike Clark, Division President at Hollingsworth and Vose. And we're looking forward to having you join the conversation for new technologies for sustainable filtration.
I'd like to welcome you to the Circular Economy and Sustainable Filtration session of WFI 2025. We have three fantastic speakers from the USA, Germany, and Sweden, and panelists joining us from around the world.
Today's geopolitical environment is different than anything we've seen in recent history. I'll be chairing a session at this year's WFI Annual Conference on regulations, tariffs, and resilient global operations on how we navigate this new environment.
I'm thrilled to invite you to our session titled Filtration Innovations for Resilient and Healthy Buildings on Tuesday, December 2nd. This session features three visionary speakers in a dynamic panel exploring how filtration is reshaping the built environment.
So I'm absolutely delighted to be chairing the closing session of this year's World Filtration Institute annual meeting. Now, the topic of the session that I'm chairing is related to indoor air, artificial intelligence, sensor technology, and big data.
We are thrilled and looking forward to seeing you at the WFI 2025.
Hello, I'm Mike Malloy, Communications Director for the World Filtration Institute, and I'm thrilled to be hosting our Filtration Hour event on urban sustainability through circular filtration technologies. We have a fantastic panel of sustainability professionals, technical leaders, policy analysts, and diplomats, and we're very pleased you've chosen to join us today. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone of who we are. The World Filtration Institute is a global nonprofit organization, and our mission is to support the growth of the global filtration industry and advance the sciences and technologies of filtration and separation processes for a clean, healthy, and sustainable world. Through the efforts of leading experts worldwide, we proudly support the industry with the most comprehensive, cost-effective, time-efficient, and flexible education program called the Certified Filtration and Separation Specialist Program, or CFSS. It covers the filtration market, filter media and filtration technologies, filter design, testing, evaluation, new developments, trends, and opportunities. I'd also like to take a moment to congratulate this year's class of CFSS students who took their final exam earlier this week. This year's CFSS program comprised more than 30 individual short courses covering virtually every aspect of filtration, led by some of the leading practitioners in the industry. And in addition to our professional specialist training, the Filtration Hour is another exciting program we offer to the public, where people from all parts of industry and academia at every stage of their careers can join together to delve into some of the most critical subjects facing the industry today. We're glad you joined us today, and you can also watch the recordings of today's sessions on the WFI website. Circularity goes beyond sustainability and is a call not just for harm reduction, but for regeneration as we build places that promote safety, dignity, and prosperity. That's a tall order, and we'll discuss whether circularity really does create new jobs and economic growth, improve material and energy efficiency, and improve public health and well-being, or whether the investment costs and lack of adequate technology and policy commitment are hurdles we can't overcome. Joining us today to talk about circular filtration technology are today's session chair, Dr. Iyad Al-Attar, Strategic Director of the World Filtration Institute, Academic Fellow at Greenfield University, University of Oxford researcher on air quality and sustainable urban development, and author of over 100 publications. Next, we have Lisa Greenfield, Regional Program Manager with the Center for Green Schools at the U.S. Green Building Council. Lisa Greenfield, welcome back to the program. Next, we have Dr. Ivan Ponomarev, Head of Chemistry and Technology at ELMARCO in the Czech Republic. Dr. Ponomarev, thank you for joining the WFI for our event today. Our next panelist is Marta San Román, Director General of AFEC in Spain. Marta San Román, thank you for joining us on a busy day today.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you all.
Next up is joining us from France is Dr. Yasmine Skanji, Director of ZAACK and NanoSense, experts in sensor technology and air metrology. Dr. Skanji, thank you for joining us this morning. Also, I'd like to welcome to our panel John Ulaszek, Lead Product Engineer from Too Much Automotive Products, an expert in hydrocarbon capture and emissions reductions. John, thanks for being with us here today. Next up is Philippe Wijns, Principal and Sustainable Business Advisor at CleverSustainability in Germany. Philippe, it's a pleasure to have you with us here today. And finally, I'd like to introduce Dr. Christine Sun, Founder and President of the World Filtration Institute, editorial board member of Textile Research Journal and the Journal of Industrial Textiles, and author of over 100 publications and patents. Thanks for joining us again, Dr. Sun. And last up, we have Ricardo Meléndez-Ortiz, specialist in strategy, policy, and entrepreneurship, focusing on international economic governance and sustainable development. Ricardo, thank you so much for joining us today. So today's session will be 90 minutes with a short break at the midway point. Please direct your questions to the Q&A function on your Zoom menu, and I'll share them with the panel. Now, let's get things started today with our session chair, Dr. Iyad Al-Attar, and then we'll move on to opening statements from each of our panelists. Dr. Iyad, please proceed.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, afternoon, and evening, wherever you are. Again, welcome aboard this Filtration Hour. It's a platform where the World Filtration Institute facilitates for panelists and the audience to talk to one another about the topics and the challenges we are facing today. Today, we're going to be addressing urban sustainability through filtration, circular filtration technologies, which seem to be on the hype. But again, today, we'll try to confront the issues and come up with some sort of a platform and targets where we can embrace and make a difference together. So thank you for the introduction, Mike, and it's good to be here again in another Filtration Hour. This is the last Filtration Hour for the 2025 before our grand conference in December 2nd and 3rd. And I wanted to remind everyone that we have a major challenge today. Our air is polluted beyond potentially our ability to filter every single pollutant in the air. We may possess the technology, we may have the science to encounter particles on a drawing board, but potentially we may not really have the time and the resources. You know, when we address 6 different continents with various socioeconomic status, failing to capture all these pollutants, bringing them from outdoors to indoors, to get that fit for purpose filtered air through filtration technologies that we possess today, we may have to inhale our own emissions. Could be a scary thought, but it's a reality. So to avoid that action, we need to start thinking, how can we reconfigure the air quality quest? And how much really air filtration technologies can contribute to that quest? Are we really thinking and dreaming of so much of filters to perform and outperform to recapture what we just emitted? It may be a vicious circle. We emit, we put and install filtration solutions to recapture our own emissions. So I want to share with you a thought, which is basically was displayed during the pandemic. We tried to solve the problem from different angles. We focus sometime on the fact of being right rather than getting it right. We came up with a lot of solutions that we had hoped it would get us out of the pandemic as soon as possible. But, many authors, one of them, has criticized our performance as a humanity to tackle the recent pandemic. I also said that we were mentally everywhere and strategically nowhere. To be strategically somewhere, we need to understand the correlation between outdoor and indoor challenges. First, we need to also get the hardware to work, get it to the design point. And that's going to require that not only we bring performance to the design point so that HVAC equipment perform according to the textbook and the selection that they've made for. And then after this, we can start demanding air quality monitoring, governance, and how to advance the cause of excellent and optimal air quality. But we cannot do that when components fail, when we degrade in terms of performance, not only air filters, but also in HVAC equipment, and eventually our building envelope, buildings and cities will become unfit to occupy. Very difficult to have energy conversation, energy efficiency conversation, or indoor air quality governance when we have systems like this, when our coils are contaminated, when we don't provide the platforms, the tools and conditions for our staff and labor to do the appropriate job. So where do we start? What do we really, what is a good starting point for this? When we address circularity, we talk about design. It seems to be a very good coordinate to address repurposing and recycling. But let me ask you a question. What if we run out of filter media? Then do you think potentially we will end up with empty filter cartridges? It may be time to think of how we capture and think of confronting the rising tide of air pollution through technologies that not necessarily addressing filter media, filters, and filtration. It's maybe an opportunity to think and allow public health and well-being to drive. Since the 70s, we allowed energy efficiency as a metric to drive how we operate, construct, design our built environment. But is it naive to allow public health and well-being to drive for the next 10 years and see how this driver will get us to? Today, cognitive and hedonic well-being has become an issue. Today, we're talking about schools, not only in classrooms, but also indoor air quality and the air quality in buses and transport. I know we have Lisa Greenfield today, and I know we have John. They are major propellers of this cause, so we look forward to have this conversation with them. But it's not science fiction, it's a reality, and we need to address it. I propose 5 elements today that we need to look at. One of them is to characterize what we're up against. So it facilitates, first, how we understand and responsibly select and dispose air filters. What kind of air filter performance do we need for which application, and what are the application sensitivities that will address how we use filters, install them, and even manufacture them? How can we seek efficiency, not as a whole in the building, but also see component efficiency, not just an overall efficiency of the entire building? We can't claim we're energy efficient if our coils are contaminated and air filters are failing and the air quality indoors is poor. Then once we do that, we can engineer the response. So we can respond to variation in indoor air quality and maybe ambient conditions like sandstorms and wildfires. And eventually we grant public health and well-being to drive, not only to drive our priorities, but also to drive business models that can promote our built environment on a city scale and on a building scale. To do that, we gathered 9 distinguished panelists from different countries, from different backgrounds to talk and address this topic. This topic is critical. Our challenges are grand, but the future is now, and we've lost a lot of time since the pandemic to address this topic in a way that we can advance it professionally. And to do that, I pass it on to Mike.
All right. Well, thank you for kicking us off in such a great way, Dr. Al-Attar. You know, a couple of things before we move on that you brought up that I think we want to keep in mind through the conversation here. Be right versus getting it right, I think is a simple way to say a very important thing about actually, you know, moving from the way we feel about things and the way we talk about things to how we demonstrate that. And then the idea is public health, the idea of public health naive. I think that's an important thing to consider as we talk about the kinds of solutions that we come about, and particularly in the wake of a pandemic and in the kind of the backlash that we've had in some of those areas, and then the mentally everywhere, strategically nowhere comment, I think is very apropos in a lot of these kinds of conversations about how do we actually put into action. So let's kind of keep those in mind as we move forward. But now let's hear from our panelists, and we'll start with Lisa Greenfield for her opening statement. Lisa, please.
Thanks, Mike. Thank you, Dr. Al-Attar, Dr. Sun, and World Filtration Institute. It's a pleasure to be here today joining all of these amazing panelists. I'm Lisa Greenfield. I'm the Regional Program Manager with Center for Green Schools at USGBC. Center for Green Schools started back in 2010, and we are working on bringing energy efficient indoor air quality to schools nationwide. And, you know, the air that students and staff breathe shapes attendance, focus, cognition, and test performance, and it carries short and long-term health consequences. At the same time, energy is one of our largest controllable costs, and we no longer have to choose between fiscal responsibility and healthy classrooms. So you can actually have your cake and eat it too. And you can do that by embracing circular practices, using less energy to deliver cleaner air, and we can extend equipment life that way. We can lower energy costs, and we can protect our most vulnerable, our students, especially those in communities burdened by pollution and heat, and those are our urban spaces. And did you know that the majority of urban schools are placed near the transportation highways where pollution is the highest? Yes. So that's why one of the most critical decisions in K-12 education is integrating circular and energy efficient design with also superior indoor air quality. Those two can happen together, and cost reduction should not come at the expense of health. We must ensure that buildings are not only cost efficient, but also provide a healthy indoor environment that supports optimal learning outcomes in the classroom.
All right, thanks very much, Lisa. Next up, let's hear from Marta San Román. Marta.
Hi, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. So, well, being part of an association with HVAC equipment manufacturers, that makes you really easily understand that filtration is much more than a technical process. It's a bridge between health, efficiency, and sustainability. So, you know, last year I had a chance to run a masterclass on filtration in Spain with Dr. Al-Attar, and I witnessed something which was very remarkable. There was this room filled with experts from manufacturers, HVAC, engineering, architecture, healthcare, and even finance. And they all were discovering something which is invisible as clean air, but they really united us around a common purpose. So we explored how filters work, but also how they protect lives. They optimize energy and connect technology with public health. That day reminded us that every breath we take in a building is a part of a much larger system. And today's session, it's about circular filtration technologies. And that takes that vision that we learned from that masterclass last year one step further. The future of filtration is circular, and it is defined by AFEC, but now excuse me the pun, it is air filtration and for environmental circularity. So it is not just anymore about trapping contaminants. It's about managing air, managing materials and resources within regenerative loops and minimizing waste and maximizing performance. So I am very happy and proud to be part of this journey, working with you, with manufacturers, researchers, with the public administrations, public authorities, and embed those circular principles into HVAC and building systems. So I invite you all to listen, to question, and to imagine with us. This circular filtration is just not the future of technology. It's not the end of a process. It's the beginning of a healthier urban metabolism.
All right. Thanks very much, Marta. And so glad to have you here as the voice of HVAC manufacturers and the equipment that really runs all these things. And I think, as an industry, we have a perception that we need to make that conversion from talking about HVAC as a mechanical process and a maintenance process to an instrument of well-being and health. And and that's a big part of our role here, is to help change the perspective on that. So next up we have Yasmine Skanji. Yasmine, please go ahead.
Yes, so continuing what Dr. Marta was saying about managing the buildings and putting some visibility, I have experimented quite a wide experience in monitoring into a building management system and putting some visibility on different topics in air quality in general. And I can attest that it helps a lot in having better indoor environments, fully controlled, and also being able to get quite good results also in on energy consumption in the long term. So it's quite interesting, and I'm very happy and proud to share this filtration hour and being able to expose this topic with you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Skanji, and you're helping us all to see what's invisible, and I think that's also a big part of raising the awareness of the potential harm that we're working with here. Next up, John Ulaszek, please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. I appreciate you being here today. I'd like to speak on behalf of the riders and the operators of the largest mass transit system in North America, and that's the school bus system. School buses in North America have 1940s era HVAC systems, which are basically non-existent. They're essentially just designed to defrost the front window. And I'd like you to imagine a classroom of 30 children. First, I'd like you to imagine turning off the HVAC system and then increasing the number of children in that classroom to approximately 250. So you have that confined space with no air circulation, no filtration, and that's probably only half of the problem. I could talk for an hour about the things that I've uncovered working with school bus drivers, the data logging we've done, CO2 levels approaching 5,000 ppm, not to mention PM 2.5 VOCs, or the measles problem on top of COVID that we have here in Canada and the US. So this is, as a parent, this is where I'm focusing my energy. I've worked with a company in town with sustainable filter technology. They're no longer a going concern because of the way funding was cut off after the declared end of the COVID pandemic. So to me, school buses are my primary focus of my energies right now.
All right, thanks very much, John. Philippe, please go ahead.
Hello, everybody. My name is Philippe Wijns. So I've worked in filtration for many years. And today I advise companies through my firm, CleverSustainability, on how to make filtration both sustainable, but also economically viable. So I try to approach it from an industry and company perspective. So circularity is important to me because filtration, and we heard it already, is at the heart of the public and the personal health. However, it also creates a significant amount of complex waste, including using mixed materials. At the end, we do have contaminated media, and we also face challenging logistics. With the new EU Circular Economy Act, which is part of the new European Industrial Deal, and also the related rules on product design, take back, digital product passports, including LCAs, our industry will have to change on how we design, on how we collect, on finding finance filtration solutions, not only in Europe, but also globally. So I'm especially interested in three challenges. First, how do we build new business models? We talked about it already today, and economies of scale, which we need for circular filtration. Second, how can companies cooperate instead of each one inventing its own small system? And third, okay, I'm European, you heard it already, how Europe can be a trendsetter on circularity without drawing everyone into red tape, where we are well known for, especially compared to the US, and where is it low on the agenda these days, and with China, which I believe is still on the forefront on some of the technology innovations, but maybe sometimes behind on regulations. For example, I talk about PFAS-free media. So from this session, I hope that we can move from slogans to practical ideas, maybe simple metrics, KPIs, concrete partnerships, and real next steps that we all can take home. I just would like to mention as we speak that the COP30 conference in Brazil is still taking place, but I look forward to the discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Philippe Wijns. And last up, we have Ricardo Meléndez-Ortiz. Ricardo.
Hello. Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Can you hear? Okay. So thank you, Mike and Dr. Dar for this invitation. This is, I can hear from all the very powerful initial statements of other speakers that it's obvious that this is a very good moment to address these issues. Just a very bit of housekeeping, and I'm speaking from an airport, so I hope the speakers don't overcrowd my voice. But let me just add what I could add, and we can develop it later in the conversation. You all have been talking mostly about the technology, the industry, and obviously the very daunting challenges of scaling good air quality technologies and applications so that they actually reach those that need it. And so there are two things in my mind. One is that the circumstances, and it was just mentioned by Philippe, I think, are changing with the climate change and other type of challenges that we now face. We are now at a world that is 1.6 degrees above what is tolerable. And we in Rio have heard that may get up to 3.5 soon. Now, with that comes a whole set of other challenges again for indoor air quality and indoor environmental quality. And so what I would like to do is take you a little bit above all this to the policy and the governance level. And so actually to really move into further innovation and circularity and a good deployment of those technologies where it is needed, we need strong governance systems that are really speaking to the need of this specific problem of air quality, indoor air quality. And that may mean, for instance, that we need instruments at the international level and regulatory frameworks on international trade, on investment, on technology. I have witnessed some very similar points of reflection in other two areas of technology, like telecommunications technology, as well as the clean energy technologies, which came probably 20 and 30 years ago. And they were at a place where you seem to be now with these filtration technologies, filtration technologies. Sorry. Those for both information technologies as well as for clean energy technologies. I can go in details, but from local standards to regional, national, and then other mechanisms that really help us understand who and how and all these technologies and their components can be produced in a more efficient manner and in a manner that is really circular, that is sustainable, and all this. Again, those examples may help us think about what is needed to move forward on the filtration techniques. So thank you, Marta.
All right. Thanks very much, Ricardo, and thanks everybody for the thoughtful opening statements. Really get us going in the discussion. I want to remind everybody who's attending in the audience that you can offer your questions through the Q&A function on the Zoom menu. Do encourage everybody to do that and to participate in today's discussion. We'll open it up now for a more general discussion. And the first question I have for the panel is, how do we make not only government, scientific, and industry leaders care about indoor air quality, but say regular people as well, especially when we're talking about urban environments that can be very complex and dynamic. Marta, would you like to start us off on that?
Well, thank you very gladly. Yeah, I think that there have been a couple of comments by Philippe, Ricardo, maybe someone else, who have highlighted that the governments are already cautious about it, and they are starting including indoor environmental quality into even energy performance directives, or industry is aware of the need for circularity. Reaching regular people is a little more difficult, but it is very strongly related to cultural challenges. So imagine in Spain, where traditionally people go outdoors and we open the windows just to refresh the indoor air. So suddenly you're telling all those people that when you open the window in a city, in a urban environment, the outdoor air is polluted and it is not clean. So you need to clean it somehow. So suddenly you're telling them that the intangible, the invisible, has to be paid for. That is a strong cultural challenge. So part of the things that I believe we need to be really focused on is visualizing the invisible, which means measure it, show it, monitor it, displays, apps, smart ventilation systems, things that people can really see somehow. But there is the double blade for that, is that you also need to make sure that all those measurements and monitoring systems are following standards. Remember the pandemics, everybody went out to reach for a CO2 meter. There were no standards about CO2 measurement. So you could have 3 different CO2 meters, and what was saying 700 ppms and the other one 1200, so you should be running away. So which one was the right one? Okay, now we do have a standard. So those 2 challenges, I think, are what we need to care for, to make awareness to regular people. Cultural things, so the invisible is there, and make sure that when we make it visible, it is according to standards, and we do not go 3 steps backwards after having moved 5 steps beyond.
All right. Well, and that's a great point. Yasmine, would you like to join on that? I know that's a big part of your work is making that invisible more visible to people. That's effective for a lot of people. How do we scale that?
Thanks. Yes, Mike, definitely. It's recognized health benefits brought back to the front in the post-COVID context. Real-time visibility on key indoor environmental parameters provides powerful leverage of reducing energy consumption and also putting awareness as we are providing visibility on the invisible pollution that is all around us, and improving the building performance in general. Additionally, I want to notify that most of buildings in our days operates with substantial overventilation. Here in France, for example, it's often close to 20%, simply because operators lack accurate, actionable data. It's a lack in the maintenance building management in general. So continuous monitoring allows HVAC system to shift from static oversized operation to truly demand-driven control. And it is nowadays very important in the with all the intelligence that we are providing in the technology, in the different technologies, as our phones, for example. And it's significantly reducing energy waste while maintaining optimal comfort and health standards in general. So, in addition, also ventilation is not always the source of the discomfort when indoor air quality issues are present into a building. So the filters are not only the responsible of this air conditioning environment. So putting visibility on it has to be, it's today necessary into a smart building in general to provide, to have a high impact on the maintenance, on the predictive maintenance based on data.
All right, thanks very much. I was going to say, Lisa, I think there's nowhere that where like government and regular people come together more clearly than in schools. What's your thought on that? How do we get that to be more of a real issue for people?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's what I do in my work every day is trying to bring awareness, and we can do that by measuring and monitoring, like the other panelists said, but making it like understandable, bringing in the students and the teachers and the facilities managers, and having them learn about indoor air quality. You can find data on your fewer sick days, improved test scores, lower energy bills. There's data everywhere we turn around, making these improvements that we do real. Investing in the smallest improvements can bring us the biggest gains. And just really bringing people into understanding what's happening in the space, talking about it. There's a lot of wonderful folks out there like the American Lung Association, the Go Green Initiative, and the EPA, where they're making air quality outside visible with their different colored flags, communicating what's happening outside, and you can bring that information inside. So because that whatever is outside also makes its way in. So there's lots of ways that we can make the unseen seen. All we have to do is really engage those that are most affected and show them all of the possible benefits of doing that.
Right. One of the things that you mentioned in your opening statement was that, we don't necessarily have to choose between energy efficiency and cost. And, that kind of leads me to my next question is that a lot of the sustainability and development is focused on energy efficiency. And I would say rather than on human health, or at least maybe prioritized more visibly over human health. So do current LCA practices draw an appropriate balance between long-term global effects and short-term acute crises? And Philippe Wijns, maybe we start with you on this one.
Okay, thank you, Mike. I mean, that is, I worked a long time within, let's say, the manufacturing and in the industry. And one of the challenges I see is like to find the right compromise. You look at performance. but it also needs to be, and I said it, like to be economically viable. At the same time, don't you compromise on health? We talked about what can the governments do, but my experience is that you need to have an idea, right? We talked today about circularity. Well, circularity is not sustainability, but it's part of it. I heard in the initial statements also that you have different solutions. Here it's focused on circularity, but it needs to be financially viable to start with. The other thing, and this is what I try to say, is that you need some adaptation also by the industry. I mean, one company is not going to do it by its own. And these are the things when you talk about LCAs, you can have a very good, when you look at your carbon footprint, you do your life cycle analysis, you have a very good outcome, but it doesn't mean that it really is helping, let's say, two goals. First of all, the health, what we talk about. We talk about urban, let's say, personal and public health. Secondly, that it also helps the sustainability or the environment on the long end. And I think this is what I try to say, that we really need to think as an industry, not as an individual company. Maybe with the support from, let's say, from governments, maybe with the moral support from citizens, that they push politicians and maybe the industry, and that they are prepared to do that. But I think, and this is also what I said at the end of my opening statement, slogans. It's very good that we talk about it. It's very good that companies take initiatives. I see very good ideas, people being very passionate about it, but I don't see it really today. If you would measure it, we still use the traditional filtration solutions, filters, systems, concepts, what we have done the last 5 to 10 years. And you talk about media, you talk about circularity concepts, eco-design, you talk about raw materials, but I don't see it in place. And I think it's something which we need to do as soon as possible. So I'm definitely passionate about it too. But this is the challenge I see, Mike.
All right. Thanks, Philippe. Dr. Al-Attar, do you have anything to add to that? Competition between human health and energy. And then Ricardo, please jump in.
I want to pass it to Ricardo because I'm sure Ricardo will have an amazing things to say about this, and then I'll follow up after. Ricardo, it's all yours.
Thank you, Dr. Iyad. I just saw that Marta was also at an airport, so I don't feel that bad. Or maybe
you're okay. Yeah.
Okay, so no, I think what we just heard from Philippe is really a wonderful diagnosis to start from. So as I was saying before, we're now facing, as I see it, a moment where we have to accelerate innovation, manufacturing, deployment, and use of these filtration technologies. There are many reasons why. So we have spoken about, or you have spoken about, the health sector. There's also an aging population, which is going to need more and more good air quality, indoor air quality. And then there's infrastructure, airports, transportation infrastructure, and so on, schools, of course, that will require more and more of these technologies. For me, the concern is not so much whether Europe and the US can do so and really increase and go the way of innovation and so on. The concern is also that you have the tropical countries, mostly countries in the tropics are developing nations, and then you have very poor countries in the south that with climate change as well are going to necessarily turn their lives in such a way that they would have to live longer inside than outside. So this dichotomy between energy efficiency and human health should not really happen. That it's not a question of choosing. They go together. And the reason for energy efficiency, it has to do today really with emissions. The emissions, climate change, the impact on climate change, and then obviously the availability of technologies to change our energy matrices. It's another story. The human health concern is redundant to put it that way, but it is vital, right? And so I go back to what I was saying. We have to put in place, Philippe mentioned this, innovative financial mechanisms, bring the question of this rapid acceleration of the innovation and the deployment of the technologies to a good level in the public debate, such that, for instance, countries could come up with blended public-private funds and ESG-linked bonds, for instance, related to healthcare facilities or low-income housing, things like this. Now, public-private partnerships and subsidization whenever it's necessary, and so on. That all has to be linked, as I was saying before, to standards and regulations at the local level, and to very enabling regulatory systems at the international level. So rules, again, that allow us to ensure that the technologies, for instance, minimize environmental impact in that, for instance, the use of raw materials and extraction, the manufacturing, the transportation, so on, that recycling programs do come with a responsible end-of-life disposal mechanism, and then obviously the whole package of ESG, labor practices, and so on. So I think it's a very long homework that needs to be done. And from the perspective of technical work, I think we need to better understand how these technologies are, right? What is the state of those technologies? And what we need is efficient production of those technologies. And so what we need to really understand again is how are the value chains in the manufacturing organized? Where do we have barriers that we can attack? Or where is the need for better extracting policies whenever those raw materials are not easily available, and so on. So making sure that there's a posture about sustainability along these value chains, but also make sure that innovation is also promoted. And of course, it has to be promoted by the market, but it also can be promoted through other mechanisms that are more targeted and specific. So again, another conversation. We need several more panels. Thank you, Mike.
All right, well, and thank you for bringing up, the issue of developing countries too, and kind of the global South more broadly, where we have really some of the most acute current conditions and some of the most challenging opportunities there. So I think that's an important perspective to add that we will pick up again in the second half as well. I think we're going to talk about vulnerable populations in general, but that will include that in other more specific places in other parts of the world. But now I think we've come up on our coffee break. So let's take a 5-minute break here.
In a changing world, clean air and clean water are essential to human health, sustainability, and innovation. The World Filtration Institute is dedicated to this vital mission, connecting science, technology, and solutions. We proudly welcome you to the WFI 2025 Annual Virtual Conference.
Hello, my name is Tyler Smith, and I'm VP of Global Lifecycle Solutions at Johnson Controls. On behalf of the WFI 2025 Organizing Committee and all of our distinguished speakers, we invite you to join us at the World Filtration Institute's 2025 Annual Conference on December 2nd and 3rd, 2025, from 8 a.m. to noon Eastern each day. The theme of this year's conference is Filtration for a Healthy, Resilient, and Sustainable World.
I'm Greg Holverson.
My name is Dr. Thomas Caesar.
My name is Dr. Iyad Al-Attar.
My name is Mark Schmidt.
My name is Tobias Zimmer.
My name is Martin Klein.
My name is Dr. Jatine Kanpara.
My name is Ashley Jameson.
My name is Andreas Wiegmann.
My name is Jim Answer.
I'm Wes Fisher.
I'm Dr. Thomas Piet.
My name is Dr. John Ryan.
I'm Bruce Larange.
My name is Cedric Valley.
I'm Paul Gagliardo.
My name is Tony Abadi.
I'm Junko.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick. I'm the president of Revive Air, and it is truly an honor to let you know that I'll be hosting a session at the 2025 WFI Annual Conference.
I'm Mike Clark, Division President, Hollingsworth and Vose. And we're looking forward to having you join the conversation for new technologies for sustainable filtration.
I'd like to welcome you to the Circular Economy and Sustainable Filtration session of WFI 2025. We have 3 fantastic speakers from the USA, Germany and Sweden, and panelists joining us from around the world.
Today's geopolitical environment is different than anything we've seen in recent history. I'll be chairing a session at this year's WFI annual conference on regulations, tariffs, and resilient global operations on how we navigate this new environment.
I'm thrilled to invite you to our session titled Filtration Innovations for Resilient and Healthy Buildings on Tuesday, December 2nd. This session features 3 visionary speakers in a dynamic panel exploring how filtration is reshaping the built environment.
So I'm absolutely delighted to be chairing the closing session of this year's World Filtration Institute annual meeting. Now, the topic of the session that I'm chairing is related to indoor air, artificial intelligence, sensor technology, and big data.
We are thrilled and looking forward to seeing you at the WFI 2025.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the second half of today's Filtration Hour on urban sustainability through circular filtration technologies. I'd like to welcome everyone back and encourage everyone to share your questions with the panel through the Q&A function on the Zoom menu. When we left off, we were talking about the balance between energy efficiency and human health outcomes, and how we address those through policy, through business, and through regulation. I'd like to invite Ivan Ponomarev into the conversation and comment on the balance between energy efficiency and human health and how that's affected by materials and, from your point of view. Ivan, and first of all, welcome to the program. Ivan, can you hear us? No, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So, hello everyone. Sorry. So actually, as ELMARCO, we are promoting nanofibers for a long time in air filtration materials, and in general, one of the biggest benefits related to, let's say, a bit lower grade of filtration in accordance with the previous standards, it's like something between F7, F9. Nanofibers brought a very interesting ratio between filtration efficiency and pressure drop, and what we see is that it helped a lot in a lot of industries, especially, for instance, in gas turbines. But now it's penetrating more and more towards like HVAC systems. And on top of that, after these new regulations related to discharging of filters and usage of filters with a real mechanical filtration, we see the growth in demand to modification of standard materials with nanofibers. So that's our experience. That's a trend, clear trend we see.
All right, thanks for that. And Dr. Al-Attar, I want to get you back in on that topic before we move on as well.
Thank you, Mike. I've made notes of many great comments that have been mentioned. Let me try to address them quickly, one at a time. I'll start with Ricardo because I was privileged to take one course in Cambridge University under his supervision and been taught by him. Let me just remind everyone that 2014 to 16, 92% of the global population was exposed to air quality that was beyond the acceptable threshold set forth by WHO. Guess what? Since that time, so many air quality initiatives came about, promising not only to address the causes, but also to provide solutions. Today, we're in 2025. The result, 99% of us are exposed to air quality that is beyond the threshold. I think this is an honest, direct question to what exactly is happening here. Philippe said something important. If we're going to sit down and talk about this, it's nothing but wishful thinking. But also we need to address the fact that, who are going to be the assumed users of all these super duper technologies? socioeconomic status is very important because to certain people, they do not participate in the pollution, but they have to buy the filtration systems or this HVAC system to provide thermal comfort in addition to fit for purpose filtered air. My second point is how much value do you put on people in terms of government? You go take your lunch and go to the park. There has been studies suggesting that the value of people is potentially maybe the value of the number of benches you put in and the chairs you put in the park. You know, you have your tires worn out on your car, so you seek a much better tire with robust performance. But do you not question why the streets are the way they are? And my last point is, what do we really want our governments to do? And when we do nothing, whether it's the community or the government, isn't air quality governance an empty concept? What are we really chasing? You know, we're talking a lot about clean air as a human right. Fresh air is important for ventilation. What are we really promising here? This is a universal promise, clean air. What is clean air basically made out of? How much and how many pollutants we're going to have to take out? I think we've got serious questions to answer, and we have to put them on the forefront of, you know, any sustainability endeavor we want to embrace. Again, I want to borrow Philip's expression. It's going to become nothing but wishful thinking. John put his finger on vehicles, especially for school buses. Lisa has been working very hard on indoor air quality for schools. You know, we're talking about, you know, the real delivery of a fit for purpose air quality that we haven't been attaining. Mike?
All right. Well, we've covered a lot on that, and I you know, we've talked about take back programs, regeneration, new materials, nanofibers, regulations, global collaboration, and it sounds very expensive. And say the question I have is circularity just for the rich? You know, what about issues of equity and justice when we talk about issues of circularity? You know, how do we extend that, and how do we not just extend it, but start with that in mind? Is that part of the solution? Should it be? So maybe Ricardo, back to you on that. What do you think? Oh, Ricardo, you're on mute. Can you unmute? There you go.
Yeah, now.
Yep, we got
you.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I lost the button there. Okay, no, I think this is a great question. As I was saying before, the challenges are very big for everybody. I think it's a worldwide issue. I think, and you are the experts on this, that we're probably much behind where we should be in the use of these technologies all over the world. And but it is more acute, as Mike said, in those countries that have that are either poor because of income, but also that don't have the facilities to manufacture, or they don't have the culture even of organizing their quality. And as I said before, with climate change, with other pollutants coming into the air and so on, we're going to have an acute situation in many of those countries on the question of internal indoor air quality. So what to do? I think we need to make sure that there is, as I said before, regulatory frameworks, mechanisms at the local, national, and international levels that guarantee that everybody, particularly those in vulnerable situations, low-income communities, schools in underserved areas, elderly care facilities, that they all have good quality protection from indoor air pollutants through, for instance, mandated standards, and again, with putting in place not only the standards, but monitoring programs to make sure that well, someone spoke before about the built environment, So buildings, and there's something that needs to go also into making sure that that industry, the building industry, is more aware and gets to incorporate filtering technologies. But again, in a question of underdevelopment, that's something that requires either an industry association or an interest group or the government to act and make it explicit. Otherwise, it's not going to happen just in a magic way. There's also a negative side that may happen when you scale up the use of these technologies, and that has to do with arbitrage in the question of, for instance, high and low technologies, the use of, again, materials that may not be of the highest quality, and so on. And so we also need regulations in that respect. And I have to say, I have much to learn about the regulatory systems that affect filtration, but I would love to get into that later on, and obviously with all of you. Thanks.
All right. So Lisa and John, you're both very involved in schools, and Ricardo just mentioned schools, is an area where this issue really comes up. What's your experience there, and what are your thoughts on how you how you bring equity and justice into the formula?
Sure, I'll talk on that first. We've worked with a lot of schools in the last 15 years, and we're really finding that when schools will implement a way to monitor their energy use, they're able to better find where they're typically over using, say, over ventilating, like Yasmine talked about. When you can control your energy use, you find money in that you can use to better improve the school. So there is actually, savings to be found, so less energy use, and then you can invest that into improved indoor air quality. So there are ways that you can find those savings, but there's also, depending on where you live and what state you're in. Minnesota right now has $1 million grant through their energy commerce, and a school can apply for it and get $50,000 towards improving their HVAC system. So there are incentives out there. So, you do have to dig, but there are schools out there doing this. And, really it boils down to being able to understand what's happening in your space to be able to improve it and find those savings.
All right, John?
I apologize. I cannot speak to the situation for children, students, and operators of transport outside of North America with much clarity. But what I can speak to is when we talk about equity in North America, clean air on transport is probably one of the biggest equity issues that you could possibly address. It is the largest mass transit system in North America. We move more students, we move more students than commuters on these buses. And if you want to talk about equity, the cost of mitigations that we could take to make the air safer to breathe for children with respect to VOCs, PM 2.5, dust from tires, and then certainly COVID, and now measles, because measles is no longer controlled in Canada or the United States. We can very easily look at the situation in Canada and the US and say, we are not doing anything at all on school buses in Canada or the United States to control the things that I've just described. So we are doing an experiment that is unethical. You would never get this experiment past any ethics panel. We're doing this to our children right now. We're exposing them to all of these constituents without any protection. The only filters on the school bus are the lungs of the students and the driver. So the question now is, what are we going to do, if anything, to mitigate this? Because right now we are doing an experiment where we are now finding out the cost of long COVID in kids, asthma, brain damage from PM 2.5. So we're going to find out the costs to our children in the future. What is the value of protecting them? That is the question I have, and I pose to everybody in this panel and anybody that's paying attention right now, is what is the value of healthy children for our? So to me, this is the biggest equity problem I can think of in North America.
That's a great response, John. And I also point out, that those are also the most vulnerable people. They're the sick, the infirm, but young people have smaller lungs. They take more breaths. They're more susceptible. That confined space is even more of a danger spot than it would be for adults in a similar situation.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'd be remiss to not mention the people in the disabled community, the temporarily abled community, the children that get on buses that have to wait several minutes just to get loaded in a wheelchair into that bus. They're sitting on the side of the road. They're exposed to all of these constituents. And you're right, they are more vulnerable. And our bus drivers in North America are also very vulnerable. They're generally older folks that are doing this because they like kids, but they're retired. And so they're bringing the health issues that come with their age group.
Right.
All right. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, John inspired me to also ask an important question. Over a month ago, I had the pleasure of meeting Ricardo, and we talked about banking clean air or fit for purpose clean air for the next generation. This is the question that John has asked. What is the value? How much value you put in on healthy transport system for our children? How much is this part of the tuition? And what role do we want to play? Let me take you back, and I know I get criticized for doing this all the time, but let me take you back 6 years to 2019. How did we deal with the pandemic? It's not a surprise that was dealt to a great extent as a business opportunity, with some people. But when things got, a little bit easy, we delisted air quality. We had a hype of using HEPA filters and high efficiency filters. But then again, unless it's an emergency and it's going to shut down your city, you're not going to do something about it. I think this is where we lack. When we talk about and listen to urban planners, they say everything is designed for a reason. Isn't that the time where we get air quality metrics embedded in the urban planning from day one, so we don't have to chase facility management and we don't have to chase municipalities, and appeal to their ethical and emotional compass to embed this for our children, moms and dads and the elderly to basically get it done. Not to mention the point that Ricardo has mentioned, where the socioeconomic status is also an issue. So I'm going to stop here because this is a topic we can dwell on. Again, I borrow the expression of my colleague Philippe. Unless we have a rigorous a plan to do something about it, it's again wishful thinking. Thank you, Mike.
Well, I'm going to dwell on it a little bit more. So, Yasmine, I'd like you to join us, and Philippe, you get in as well. We talked about data. We talked about making it visible. Is data a threat? Do people want to know? And I think it goes back to John's point. It's this big experiment, but we don't really have a control. And I don't know how much data we're actually gathering in a way to take action. So, Yasmine, you're in the data collection business. Are there threats to that? So, if then you're obligated to do something about it. Is there resistance to that?
No, not at all. It's not a threat. People need to be supported by professionals because they are totally not in panic faced to the data, but they might be confused about what the thresholds are, what the recommendations are. So mainly, I think that the key of that, they need to be supported by professionals, and that the monitoring provided with has to be automated with intelligent solutions to simplify decisions making and piloting directly the HVAC system according to the data. It has to be piloted moreover than only putting awareness and raising awareness. It's important, but in environments, as we discussed, such as school or transportation or some people, staff members don't have the time or the technical resources to manage these data and these indoor air quality issues on daily basis. So we need to support them moreover with our expertise.
All right. Philippe, please pick up on that. And also, I'd like you to address a question from the audience of how can we actually measure sustainability or circularity?
Two questions, Mike. Okay, I will start with the first one. I really like how the discussion is now going. Should we be afraid of data? No. But therefore, we need to measure it. Because data will increase the transparency. And that's what we need. So we talked, maybe the first part of the discussion today was about filtration. But filtration is trying to solve a problem. You know, polluted air, taking contaminants out of the air. And it's also trying to solve a problem, I would say, like, or helping the public health, the individual health and everything. That's why I say, like, you know, you need to have transparency. You need to report. I talked about slogans. I try to be a little bit provocative, but this is what I see. I'm really passionate about it, and we should do some things, but therefore you need data. I think the industry is doing good things now, at least to, let's say, try to measure it. Dr. Skanji was talking about it, but this will help transparency. And now to answer your second questions, and I think when we do have the grand conference in, I believe it's the beginning of December, the 2nd and the 3rd, I worked a little bit on how can you improve it on KPIs? How do you measure it? Because you have thousands and thousands of data. And I think as well from an industry perspective, you can agree on some common parameters. But as a company, I think you need to have a strategy and decide for yourself, what do you want to do on sustainability? What do you want to do to help the environment? And this could be different for company to company, but that you, depending on where you are in the supply chain, what your added value is to the filtration industry, you know, where you are, what is, where can you contribute, that you can define KPIs, that you would again measure it, that you would present them to stakeholders, so you can present them, but internal and external, and then at least you see the progress you are going to make. And I've seen some, I was at some congresses which were not related to filtration, but I've seen some good tools, and I try to make something like, when you talk about KPIs, how can a company do that? How can you have common goals? And again, data are important. We should not be afraid about it. They will increase transparency, and they will help us getting where we want to be. And I mean, we talk here about public health, and everybody agrees upon how important it is, children to the vulnerable people, whatever. And this is really, really an important question we need to have, not about slogans, not about this, not about that. And I see something as well on an industry level as on a company level that you can do a lot about it. Data are important, Mike.
All right, thanks, Philippe. We're running a little short on time here, but I do want to bring up the idea of new materials that support circularity, you know, and talking about things like biopolymers, thinking about biofiltration, and things that can really support regeneration of not just materials, but of soils and habitats. Dr. Sun, do you have anything to add about new materials or developments that are either here now or on the horizon?
Well, thank you, Mike. First of all, thank you for all our distinguished panelists for your fantastic insights for this important topic. So we talk about from the very beginning, we only focus on energy consumption when we address sustainability to today actually it's become a complicated, multidisciplinary problems and technical issues, standards and government regulations, etc. So it's a huge topic actually we address today. And talking about the materials, also we can see that. So in the years ago, we talk about sustainability, we just talk about energy consumption, we talk about the efficiency, we talk about the green and clean. So those two keywords is primarily addressed in terms of filtration is efficiency and the pressure drop for energy efficiency. However, today, actually, when we talk about the sustainability, we talk about the impact of your materials to the environment, such as PFAS issues. And are there, the wasting materials, is that biodegradable? So we see a lot of innovations in the field, and also we see the materials, actually you see the development, innovations, not only just we're talking about the melt balloons, bonbon, or the traditional filtration materials. We're talking about the materials reusable. We talk about materials is more environmentally friendly, and we talk about standards. And for whoever, actually, I also saw one question in Q&A and related to the how to measure and evaluate the sustainability and circularity. It's a great question, and I highly suggest you to get involved with our events here, especially for our upcoming annual conference. We will address from the material science, for the standards, and for the global operations. Back to you, Mike.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Dr. Sun. We're going to start into our closing statements now, and everybody will have a chance to wrap up what their feelings are about today's session. And we're going to start with Lisa Greenfield. Lisa, please go ahead.
Thanks, Mike. And it was so much fun being here today and being able to share. And I just wanted to use an analogy when we talk about where to start in this whole seemingly overwhelming process of finding energy efficient indoor air quality. And often I'm asked, where do you start? And well, how do you eat an elephant? And that's one bite at a time, right? So take your first bite, and sometimes that means starting to monitor, finding out what's happening in your space, and then you can take the next step. So gone are the days where we're throwing technology inside a building. Let's find out what's going on and then work at improving it. It doesn't have to all be done at once. We can take those steps to a more sustainable classroom and buildings. So, making the invisible visible, and pairing that with cost savings, looking at everything with a lens of energy efficiency and indoor air quality that values energy and human health, and finding those safe upgrades that can lower your operating costs, and preventative maintenance. All of those things can help maintain a healthy indoor environment. And let's spend less time to be able to deliver more, so like fewer sick days, better focus, safer classrooms, more resilient learning environments. And we can do all that without blowing the budget. So when we're talking about energy efficient indoor air quality, circularity, serving students first, smarter systems, healthier air, stronger budgets. So let's make clean air efficient and a right for every student and every classroom. Thank you.
All right. Thanks very much, Lisa. Dr. Yasmine Skanji, please go ahead.
Yes, what to add with my previous comments? Yes, indoor air quality visibility is quite important in environments such as school, but as schools, as Dr. Greenfield is saying here. raising awareness is certainly important, but in my daily basis in experiments, as we are providing monitoring solutions every day in schools and in every establishment receiving public, it's quite hard to raise this awareness because they have so many emergencies to take care of every day. So I think that putting visibility is quite important, but piloting the systems by intelligent solution would be definitely the key for better controlled indoor environment into our future buildings. And we need to push the politicians to encourage and support the local industries that are providing such solutions locally, to be the closest and being able to put the actions on.
All right, thank you, Dr. Skanji, and thank you for being with us here today. John Ulaszek, you're up.
Again, thanks for having me on today. The problem in schools in general is difficult to solve, but the engineering controls, the technology exists to address it, but you have to look at the school as a system that starts the moment a child gets onto the school bus or the transport. We can solve, or we can take action on school buses. They represent possibly the most acute place that children will suffer from poor indoor air quality in North America with respect to COVID, measles, RSV, flu, forest fires, etc. I'm making a call to action here. If you can explain to parents that if their child were to just wear a respirator while they were on the bus, even if they took it off into school, we would see a measurable and actionable increase in health for our students and our children and the bus drivers. If that was the only thing we did, that it was the only change we made since the beginning of the pandemic, we would see a measurable improvement. And so I'm asking everybody on this panel and anybody to listen to consider that, to share that information with your loved ones, your children, the parents you know. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, John. Thanks for bringing that passion to the discussion. Really appreciate it. Next up we have Philippe Wijns. Philippe.
I put down 4 bullet points during the discussion, which I would like to share with the audience, in fact, for some reflection. And I think it fits well with what we heard already so far. So public health should be our everyday business in filtration. It's kicking an open door. Bringing in circularity will need redesigned filters and even broader filter systems. And this brings something where I'm convinced, and maybe what people will not like to hear, or companies, but it will also redesign our business models. That means that clever companies and clever adapters might be successful. Maybe also some newcomers when we look into the future. We talked about it, so data measurement will increase transparency, and in addition to that, public awareness and support. And then I would like to thank the World Filtration Institute, because it's offering a platform where cross-functional discussions like this can take place, and it will help us move into the right direction. That's it.
All right. Thanks very much, Philippe, and thanks for joining us here today. Next up, Ricardo Meléndez-Ortiz.
Thank you, Mike. Just very quickly, sort of as a temporary conclusion, because I think, again, from this conversation, there's so much to really build up. So I think that there are first order things that need probably a more immediate reaction. I am very impressed by Lisa and John, and the discussion that we've had on these vulnerable populations, particularly children. I think if we have an agenda for action, as Philippe is suggesting, we need to think about the production side and then the deployment and use, as I was saying. That has to be a virtual cycle, not a loop, where through data on performance on the current technologies and the current deployment they use, we can actually improve, then go into innovation of the technologies, improve manufacturing and produce better technology and so on. Okay, I just saw in the audience someone asking whether sustainability and circularity could be measured, and the quick response is yes. I mean, we have about 30. Well, I've been working on these two concepts for about 35 years, and so there's a lot that has been innovated, and it can be done. Also, I was just when Dr. San, I think, or Lisa were talking about this issue before, I was thinking, well, we have in place technologies, for instance, to install data points and have the collection and the processing of the data that comes through those data points in a really very large scale. And we have through IA, we have the technologies to do that. I work with someone who, for instance, uses that type of technology for sailing. And I work with someone else. And in sailing, they install about 140 data points in each boat. Okay, and then they can really understand what's going on with the boat. Same, I also know some kids actually that has started a fantastic startup, which is on technology data points for infrastructure, large infrastructure, and then measuring the issues like concrete, the way that it's being used and so on. So all these things are possible. That's what I'm saying. It's just we need to really have a policy agenda. In my view, and I come from the policy world, you need a policy agenda. Now that I know I'm taking long, but let me just say two quick things to finish there. Is that I want just one more on Dr. San on the question of biomaterials and innovation on that side. There is right now a drive in Europe, particularly, but I've been advising the G20 at large on that to move towards what they call the bioeconomy. And that is really basically about using nature to innovate. And there are in Europe mechanisms to enable this kind of innovation, again, or to promote that kind of innovation. So that's another thing. Now, once we have the performance from good data measurement and so on, we can then go into life cycle sustainability of the equipments and so on, and then go back to the low energy consumption, which again is more about the emissions today, minimal waste generation, ethical source and recyclable materials and so on. But I think we need to first align with global goals such as the reduction of pollution, the conservation of resources, combating climate change, and so on. This questions of filtration, and I think they do align very clearly. But they need to again brought into the attention of policymakers at all the different levels of governance, right? And then you will find that there are solutions and that there are resources that can be applied to filtration. Again, an example that comes from the discussion today, we're now moving into a world of adaptation. Right? We seem to have failed the mitigation goals that we have for the emissions for climate change. So now we move to adaptation. We have to adapt the world to those higher temperatures. Okay, for adaptation, what these conferences like the one in Brazil or the COP of climate change, what they have done in the past 10 years is actually generated an incredible amount of tools to provide different populations with adaptation financing and other type of also the urgency in public policy and so on. So I don't know why, if this is such a high priority for human health, and particularly for the vulnerable populations that we're talking about, and it's not just the children, but the children is the one that we actually see and hear. And with the bad lessons of COVID-19, COVID-19 was a disaster in policy making, in the coordination of efforts at the international level. All the institutions failed, and So again, we are going towards something like that with all these changes that we have. And if we don't respond quickly and at a scale that makes sense, that put it into the policymakers' agendas and priorities, then again, we are not doing our job. And I included that. Thank you.
Hey, thank you very much, Ricardo Meléndez-Ortiz, for joining us today. Very helpful. Thank you. So I'd like to pass it now to Dr. Iyad Al-Attar, our session chair. Thank you for organizing today and for your contributions. And please wrap it up for us.
Thank you, Mike. Would Dr. Ivan would like also to have a closing statement?
He had to go.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for being here today. I want to extend my sincere appreciation, first of all, to the panelists who inspired me personally, and I'm sure inspired the WFI audience. Our panelists have really brought different angles, different lenses and perspectives to these critical topics. So thank you for being here today. I know you're very busy. I know most of you have super busy schedule. Thank you for availing your time and your expertise to share with our audience. I also want to thank WFI for facilitating this amazing filtration hour, who's been going on for 3 years. I want to thank Dr. Sun for facilitating it. I also want to thank our hero, Camilla, who barely be seen, but she's always there for our logistics and technical support. Thank you, Camilla. Last but not least, I also want to thank our fantastic moderator, Mike Malloy. Mike, thank you so much for your amazing ability to navigate through 8 bright minds today, addressing these critical topics. My final comment is, let's leave the session today not with a sense of completion, but with a sense of purpose. Our ideas addressed today can be really a fresh breath of clean air to address and preserve our outdoor air. Maybe we don't have to clean so much, and maybe we don't have to filter so much. Also, I'd like to ask all of you to commit right here and right now, maybe to translate all this, an amazing, powerful conversation we've had today into a meaningful and measurable actions. Let's do that so we can ensure we have a healthier environment, not only for us, but certainly for our children and grandchildren, so that they can dream of a future worth fighting for. Last but not least, I pass it to Dr. Sun to have the final closing statement. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been Filtration Hour. Dr. Sun.
Thank you, Dr. Iyad, for your 3 years leadership for this Filtration Hour. We have a lot of things to go, and I think our time's up. I'm back to you, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, that's all the time we have for today. I want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank this great panel of guests, and remind everyone that we do have a biofiltration inspiration for innovations session next Tuesday, November 18th. Please join Dr. Stephanie Taylor and a great panel for that. And then join us for the annual conference online December 2nd, December 3rd from 8 a.m. to noon Eastern time, where many of the people that were here will be participating in that and covering many additional topics related to filtration. And finally, I want to thank all of our WFI members for their gifts of their time, their resources, and their people that make all of these events possible. Thanks again for joining us today. We'll see you at the next WFI event. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.